live.
Okay.
So, well, Sarah, tell who you are and where you work and a little bit about it.
Okay. I'm Sarah Hamrick. I am the Director of Library Public Services at Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. The important thing you need to know about Gallaudet is that all of our students are deaf. So that does have a big impact on our collection development policies.
Move it a little bit closer, just in case. Okay.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about the role of strategic planning. How do you know what your collection should be comprised of?
Okay. At Gallaudet, we have a special mission to support the deaf community. That is both our students and the greater world. So one of our collection development policies that is very unusual is that we collect comprehensively in the area of deafness. We collect everything we can find in deaf culture, deaf history, sign languages, and we do not, there's no selection involved in terms of, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Is this positive or negative? We buy it regardless because we think that's important historically for our collections. We have not collected as comprehensively in medical things. So we have a good bit of medical material in our collection because we have graduate programs in audiology and hearing and speech sciences. But by and large, those are areas that we only support partially, which is not great, but it's also a cost-effective measure because those materials are most expensive. Outside of that, our strategic planning involving collecting has changed quite dramatically in recent years because our curriculum has changed very dramatically. We became what we're referring to as a bilingual, bicultural university a couple of years ago. And a lot of our programs were dropped, our undergraduate programs in particular, and a few programs were added, a couple of graduate programs were added. The focus has definitely become more on deafness, deaf history, deaf culture, as I've already said, but also areas that relate to that in some way. We have a very large communication studies program. We have a lot of psychology programs. So we collect in those areas. We struggle as a small institution because we have 1,200 students. And we do have a biology major. We have a chemistry major. We have business majors. We have math and computer science majors. But we only have a handful of students majoring in those programs, which makes it very hard to support those. We have the benefit of being members of the Washington Research Library Consortium, which gives our students access to more than 6 million books. Now, of course, there are lots of duplication in that, but in terms of our collection, while we do not make a conscious decision not to collect in certain areas, it is a big support that our students have access to those materials that are delivered daily, so they can get them very easily. Our policy is that we collect to support the curriculum. So we study every time. This year, in the summertime, we look at what courses are being taught in the fall, and we try to purchase materials to support new courses that are being taught as well as the old classes. We have started the new bilingual, bicultural approach has resulted in a lot of courses that are team taught. For example, an art professor and a history professor last year taught a course on Picasso. And they looked at Picasso from the perspective of art and from the perspective of history and how Picasso was historically important. We have some biology and psychology courses being team taught. So that has affected our collections because we're looking to broaden some of those areas a little more rather than strictly collecting in those areas. We have been affected, like everybody else, by budget cuts and greater expenses. We have really stopped purchasing new print periodicals. We still get some, maintain some older subscriptions, but just today I sent some information to the staff reminding them that this is the time of year for our renewals, and to go through that list again and cut any print we can to replace with electronic, largely because our students simply do not use print anymore. The value of the old value, what used to be important in academic libraries of having a place where people could come and browse periodicals, that just doesn't happen anymore. So we're cutting those subscriptions and replacing them with electronic because they're so much more easily accessible to people.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. Talk a little bit about, I mean, you kind of got to this a little bit, but because of some of your collection development policies.
Our policies are, some of the standard things, we don't purchase textbooks, we don't purchase materials outside the standard curriculum. We do purchase some popular DVDs, but only a handful, and we collect popular DVDs as gifts. A lot of people give them to us, and we make those available. We try to collect a few kind of popular novels that don't directly support the curriculum, but beyond that, we almost exclusively buy materials to support courses that are being taught, which involves spending a lot of time looking to see what is being taught and trying to maintain current awareness of that, which that information is available, it's out there, but you have to seek it. And especially as courses, things get changed very often. It's August and 3 new courses pop up, but we try to do that. We almost always, one of our policies is that if someone requests it, we will get it. Obviously, we can't do that 100% of the time, but we do it 99% of the time. We have a policy that outlines how we divide the money, our collection money. We have a certain amount that goes to deaf all the time, and that we review that every year and increase it a little bit every year. The rest we divide up based on several factors, including how many courses are being taught in that area, how many students were enrolled in the last, we get an average of the last couple of years, how many, we have not figured into that how much the books in those areas cost. We've just felt that wasn't how we wanted to look at the money, although we're considering changing that a little bit now.
Okay.
So.
You talked a little bit about just the selection. How do you go about doing that selection? What resources do you use?
Okay. It varies by selector. In our system, we don't divide our money by academic departments. We have very broad subject areas. For example, human relations. Human relations covers social work, psychology, counseling, several broad areas. Fine arts covers music, and we don't buy much music for obvious reasons, but we do buy some. Theater and fine arts. So we have these broad areas, and the selectors use a variety of tools. They use the standards, they use choice, they use books for college libraries and those kinds of things. But they also try to look at what other college library catalogs. That's something several people use. They look at reviews from other sources. Library Journal is a good resource. They look at some of the things like what's on course syllabi. They review those to see what somebody's recommended, even if it's a required book for a course. If it's not a textbook and it's something that makes sense, they'll purchase that for the collection. And I think it varies by selector, because some of the selectors spend a lot of time looking at professional journals in their subject areas. Others do not. So.
Okay.